Welcome to this month's episode of The Breeze. We're still on Zoom. We hope that someday we can get out of this format and get back together with the ladies. But ladies, this morning I wanted to refer back to a topic we talked about last week briefly, and that was what makes you happy and what has made you happy. Well, I just happen to have the answer to that. I have a book here, and you can't see it perhaps, but it's 14,000 things to be happy about. 14,000 things. Margie, I'm going to give this book to you, okay?
You think I need it more than you and Tina, huh?
Well, I'm not saying, but
yeah, I know what you're saying. Yes, I'll take it. I'll take it.
You know, like,
and then I'll teach the two of you.
Good. Well, I've read it. The smell of onions and sausage cooking. Cats sitting on a windowsill. Log fires and friends. All to be happy about.
I've seen Paul Bunyan. He's from my home state, or I'm from his.
Well, there's 14,000, and I highly recommend the book. It's about 40 years old. But enjoy it, and I hope everybody takes it and finds it and reads it, because there's no sense sitting around worried about what to B&M about, bitch and moan, if you got these little blessings to be happy about. You just have to recognize them.
Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, today I want to talk about volunteerism in Sun City. And, you know, our strategic planning committee has identified volunteerism as a core value of Sun City, a core value. And what do you think they mean by that?
Well, it makes it run. It's like the wheels on a car.
Okay.
If you don't have the wheels, you can't run. Same thing with volunteering. If we didn't have the volunteers as a part of our foundation, we wouldn't have this beautiful place that we live in.
I think it also means that Sun City expects and encourages people to give of themselves to make this community stronger and warmer and friendlier and needs met, and that they will support that endeavor.
Well, I mean, it certainly saves us money on our HOA when you have all these committees that people volunteer for to, in effect, take the workload off the board of directors, or at least assist them. But, you know, in addition to volunteering and for leadership positions and trying to be a part of the decision makers of this place, there's another volunteerism involved. And that of course, is either inside or outside. Charitable volunteerism of either time, effort, organizations, money. And basically, that's what I want to talk about, and some of the motivations and some of the pitfalls. We know there's some pitfalls to volunteerism. And why do you think that it's, why did people volunteer? Let's put it that way. Why do you volunteer?
Well, I began volunteering years ago before I moved here because I felt there was a need to make things better, to make things more cohesive. It was being a part of the community. I was involved in a civic association as opposed to a typical homeowners association. So it wasn't sanctioned by any laws, but I felt there was a need for our 500 home community to have a better foundation. I saw things that I felt that I can contribute to make it more cohesive and to get the community more involved, because I felt everyone had a vested interest in how well our community ran. Whether they wanted to be a member or not, their values were impacted by what was around them.
So am I correct in inferring from that you had an agenda going in?
I had an agenda, yeah, but the agenda was altruistic. It was not just about me, it was about the community.
Okay. And how about you, Margie? What makes you volunteer?
Well, my first volunteer job was little town in Minnesota, 4-H club. we built a little bench for the local Lutheran church. And I think it was instilled with me way back then. You know, our parents sent out to a little town, sent us around the 45 homes, and we'd sing Bible verses outside on the street.
You'd what?
That we would sing Bible songs from Vacation Bible School.
Oh.
Keep in mind now, this is a lot of years ago in a very little conservative Minnesota, less than 50 people that I grew up in. So there wasn't a whole lot of volunteership to do. But through the years, my whole career of 45 years was working with nonprofits. And therefore, I was in a world where I recognized the essential commitment of volunteers. And I can give you a couple examples at some point if you wish. So yeah, I had the opportunity to kind of lead and determine where the volunteer needs were in these various organizations. Rather than go out and do it myself, it seemed I was more organizing and leading others to do it. So that now that I'm not working anymore, I found my niche, you know, in Sun City for this point, volunteering.
Okay, well, you were career oriented, and I'll accuse Tina of having an agenda. Not really, Tina, you know that. But basically, another reason might be just for the pure enjoyment of getting out and the feeling you might get from helping people who are in need. And I'm sure you experienced a lot of that.
That's a good segue, because my involvement now is for enjoyment.
Mm-hmm.
But my involvement then was a different motivation. So I think that's one key factor there, is what is your motivation? What
Right.
do you intend to get out of it? You know, and my intentions then are different than now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I would say, yeah, I do some volunteer work. I mean, Sun City Television is volunteer work, but that's fun.
Yeah.
This is,
Yeah.
but basically, you know, you make yourself happier, I believe, by getting out of bed in the morning with an idea of what you're going to do. And besides going to the doctor, of course. And that when you get out there and you see that you're accomplishing something, and you're having some impact either in your community, Tina, or in your organizations that you were involved with, and that makes you a happier person.
I think we're kind of built, maybe created, to have a spot within us that tends to need to be helpful to somebody, as opposed to being completely self-centered and say, oh, what am I going to do? What do I need? Let me go get that. I'm not. They can take care of themselves. That's not the attitude we're supposed to have.
Mhm.
And so I think that, and I guess I go back to my work as well. I know how important volunteers are. Now, in our Edgewater neighborhood, is about almost 5 years old. The very first year, 3 of us organized a volunteer group here to give back called Edgewater Cares. So we have been doing projects for 4 years now, and we see the difference in us, you know, that
Mhm.
we can do this. Why are we wasting so much of our time? It's an investment of time. So I think it's
Investment
just,
of time,
yeah, there's so many needy people. And even here in Sun City, the other day I was looking up, you know, when they take food to the homes, and it's centralized over in Hilton Head. And this is one of their routes in Sun City for
Okay.
food drop-offs. You know, most of us are very lucky.
Well, and you know, that has some team building aspects to it, which is usually a good thing, where you learn to work with others and take advantage of individual talents to get a result greater than the sum of the talents.
Mhm.
You know, synergy. So, you know, I can see that point of view, absolutely. But, well, you know, there's some downsides to that too. And can you think of any that might be a downside to volunteering? Not necessarily in Edgewater, but, you know, just generally?
Well, for me, I was volunteering with the kids, and I love the kids at the Boys and Girls Club, but I just couldn't it wasn't an environment where I felt that I could do the one-on-one. I felt that I was more impactful being able to spend more time with the young girls. And that was important to me. And because of the structure, it just didn't lend itself to that because the kids were in school and they are only there for a limited time. And that's what I wanted to be able to do because I saw a need. So lack of time, I think sometimes is a downside, not necessarily mine, but the participant that I'm trying to assist.
So the reality was not aligned with your expectation, in effect.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of saying it. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's one of the downsides of volunteering is that it really isn't all what you expected, and therefore your time is not worth going after that. The other aspect is that it becomes such a fulfilling or enjoyable or worthy cause in your own mind that it can become like a job. Pardon the expression, job. Nobody wants a job anymore. We're retired.
That's when you have to say when,
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are ways to go about investigating what you're getting into before you get into it. And if
But you know what? But if they told you all the facts, you might not ever do it.
Well, that's true too. So you got to, be a little bit perspicacious, if you will, about what you're getting into. Because definitely you don't want to get up and say, oh, damn, I got to go do this when it's a charitable or volunteer organization.
Yeah.
That would defeat the purpose.
Absolutely.
Any other?
And that's why
Go ahead.
that's why we really have to take a look at what's out there and what makes my heart sing, where do I really, and this is why the volunteer day here in Sun City is going to be so important when it happens again, because it may be something we've never thought of. And yet we can get information, we can back away, we can say, okay, because if it doesn't please me, I'm not going to enjoy doing it. There has to be something that connects with my heart. Where before I want to invest that time, because there's so many other arenas one could go to. And we have to go into it and realize that we can't spread ourselves too thin either. Then it becomes work. And then we drop out. And if we're dealing with people, especially the same people over a period of time, we can't just leave their lives. If we have been going into their homes for something, or if we have been taking them places, got to really kind of think it out. And don't expect it to always be a feel-good experience. May it come from the gratefulness we have that we don't need that service. Is that a social worker talking?
No, that's very well put. And the other thing is that when you get involved with a volunteer organization, whether it's a club here or whether it's a governing body here, you run into something that needs massaging. What would that be?
The ego.
Bingo. Everybody has an ego, and sometimes when those egos clash, you have discord, animosity, loss of friendship, perhaps. Because some people see it one way, some people see it another. And if you let that eat at you, then you're in it for the wrong reason, or that person's in it for the wrong reason. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who have never really been in a leadership position, maybe, and suddenly got some presumed power, which I call a badge without authority. And they become a little overbearing. Have you run into that? I don't mean to criticize anybody in Sun City or otherwise, but I mean, I see that can be a problem.
And you know what? I think in that whole scheme of things, it's all about listening as well, because sometimes that person that you perceive to be the ego grabber just needs to be heard. And perhaps there's a way I've learned through the years, if I can't work with you, then I'll work around you. And that seems to work fairly well for me. And I'm very selective as to how I spend my time. And if I find that I'm going to be in that type of situation, and it's something that's of value to me, then I'm going to try to work it out. But if I can't, then I know that I need to take my toys and go elsewhere.
What do you look for? Toys in your attic or what?
Take
got the
my
toy
and
bag.
go somewhere else,
Well, there's also a lot of people get into volunteerism. It seems to me to be to have bragging rights. Well, I work with United Way, or I work with the Red Cross, whatever, And seems to me that's kind of a suspect motivation as well. You ever run into that, Margie, where you were running into people who were there for the wrong reasons?
Yeah, I guess I did. Again, I'm talking about my career work, but
Right.
I served on a lot of those councils and boards because we were made up that way in the Fort Lauderdale area, where everybody would come together and how can we make things better. But I've also, for the most part, the volunteers that I experienced in the programs were dedicated, helpful, and concerned. Now, I'm talking though about, for the most part, working with children.
Okay.
At one point at the agency that I happen to lead in Miami, we redid a building. It was paid for by the Burger King Corporation, the McLemore family. And we set up 30 bedrooms, and we took children, babies to age 6, who were being picked up out in their homes and brought to us by state workers, or the police had investigated abuse and neglect. And we had 30 children under the age of 6, full time, 24 hours.
Wow.
Then a couple years later, the cocaine baby epidemic hit Miami. So we rented a house across the street for 20 cocaine addicted babies coming out of the hospital. Now,
Wow.
let me tell you, if we had not had volunteers in that community who opened their hearts and came and rocked babies, that was what they did.
Wow.
These programs could not exist. And I'm talking about children, which may really have an appeal, to people rather than other kinds of needs. But I learned very quickly that without volunteers, most programs are not sufficient to give what the people need.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we took some time and went out on the streets of Sun City to talk to some people about volunteerism, about their personal experiences with volunteerism here in Sun City or outside the gates. And we got some really good answers. So let's take a look at those. And how has volunteering at Sun City impacted you?
Well, I got involved with the Boys and Girls Club through Sun City and the Women's Club. And I had the privilege of being a judge for Youth of the Year this past week. And there were 2 candidates, both raised by single moms. The one boy came from Mexico with his mom and his brother 6 years ago, is now a straight A student. He's a junior in high school. And he said one of the hardest challenges for him was to be the man of the house all of a sudden.
Well, my volunteering started back in New Jersey, and I've been a part of GFWC, the organization of GFWC for 45 years. When I moved here 7 years ago, there was no GFWC club here. So 6 years ago, right this month, I, along with a lot of other women, started this club.
And how has volunteering here at Sun City impacted you?
Oh, it's been very rewarding, and it's helped me make nice friends, and it's a good feeling to be able to give back. When I was working, I really didn't have much time to do volunteer work, so now I'm trying to make up for lost time.
And Mary, how has volunteering here impacted you?
Oh my God. Especially since I retired, it is the best thing I do. I'm also involved with staying connected, and I'm on the board of directors. And we're running a virtual silent auction in April that I'm hoping everybody will participate in some way or another.
Kathy, it's a beautiful day here. Tell me, how has volunteering here at Sun City impacted you?
Absolutely love it. You know what? It gives us a chance. You know, we may be getting a little bit older, but we've still got a lot of energy and a lot of love to give. And now we have the time to do some of those things that we always said we were going to do, and we're doing them now.
How has volunteering impacted you here?
Volunteering is a wonderful thing that we give. It's a gift we give to our community. It's a gift we give inside Sun City. And you develop a lot of friendships, and you meet new people, and you help out in the community. Most of my volunteering is out in the Hardyville community because I live on the Hardyville side of Sun City.
Well, as you can see from the interviews, there were a variety of reasons for these people to get involved and a variety of organizations. And one thing that happens to volunteers sometimes is they get thrust, I tell you, into leadership positions. And they either get their arms around that position and run with it and do a great job, or some try to manage other volunteers with a little air of authority and pushiness and a power, if you will. And that can be a problem with volunteerism is, hey, that guy doesn't know what he's doing, and yet he's the chair of this committee or whatever.
Well, then you need to move on to another volunteer opportunity. You know, it's sad if somebody
What if this is your passion?
Well, then
Well,
demonstrate it some other way. There might be another go up into Beaufort, and there might be another similar program. You know, don't have your skills buried just because you have an attitude about something. Take those skills and go elsewhere.
Now, see, what I would do a little differently, Margie, is that rather than fight or flight, I would try to work with that individual and run the risk of saying, you know, this is a great organization and you got some great ideas. Let me work with you to see how we can make this work, you know,
Okay.
and run the risk of saying, you know, hey, everyone, you know, doesn't always appreciate, you know, some of the ideas you have, but I think there's some validity there. You know, how can we maybe present this differently where they'll accept it?
You're kind. You're kind,
Yeah.
and that's probably the right thing to do. I would just have a different approach. That's all.
Yeah, yeah.
I agree
I mean,
with you on that.
because it's
Well, I will
we're-
tell you that being in a leadership position and trying to manage volunteers, some of whom are just there for a social hour, some of them are totally passionate, some of them are egotistical, others are meek. It's a real challenge sometimes. And
But that's human nature. That's what the world's made of, Doug. You're not going to get little, you know, angel wings on your back just because we're people, you know.
that's the way I always picture. That's the way I always picture you, Margie.
No, I clean the rust off every morning.
Yeah, I'm surprised at some of the things she's saying because I would expect that more from Doug.
Well, I'm just trying to be real. You know, at our age, we can be a little selfish and do what we want to do. And if we can't do what we want to do here, then move over here and do what we want to do. I've had enough of trying to change systems and change
Yeah, I know
people.
you have.
You know, I'd rather just kind of move myself out of there, and that's fine. You know, it takes all kinds. Volunteers are no exception.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll tell you, there are plenty of benefits of volunteering.
Definitely.
And
Yeah.
there's plenty of ways of dealing with the problems. And I think Sun City residents do a great job, both inside and outside of the gates. And so let's wrap this up. We'll maybe talk a little bit more about this next time. But it's a great conversation today. We hope we get some feedback. And we hope to see y'all next month when we again shoot the breeze.